Hello to all you patriots out there in podcast land, and welcome to episode 390 of Canadian Patriot Podcast, the number one live podcast in Canada, recording April 10th, 2023.
We need your help to support the Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. Show you're not a communist by buying a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right.
Excellent. And now our favorite segment, what are we drinking? And as is tradition, and because you were the only other panelist.
It's a good thing I showed up, eh, Gavin?
Yeah, otherwise it would have been me all on my lonesome, channeling my best Tim from the days of the Tim Solo show. Yes. What are you drinking, and what is something off of the Patriot Challenge that you have absolutely crushed this day and or week?
I don't know about anything off of the challenge that I've crushed per se, but I'm currently drinking some good old Tim Hortons coffee because what could be more Canadian on a Monday night than coffee?
Fair.
From Tim Hortons. I've been trying a bunch of different things over the last few weeks, so I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm crushing anything specific this week, but I was out with my four-wheeler mudding around on the weekend, so I was working on some skills of, just some standard maintenance and that kind of stuff, which
that's good.
I haven't done it in a while, so it was really good to, obviously when you bring stuff like that out of the storage for the year. But
yeah, you gotta make sure she's running, check all your fuel lines, and make sure you didn't leave fuel in it and gum up your carb or something stupid like most people do.
Yeah. So
myself included, yeah.
Well, and myself included. I had to do that.
Yeah.
I had to take apart my carb on the snowblower in the snow on the first crazy snowstorm we had this year. Yeah, because I was just like, it should be good. And then I was like, it was
fine.
Well, this is the thing is that I'm not like good at this. I used to, back probably 14, 15 years ago, I worked at, like an oil and lube spot. So when I was going through college, like I learned a lot of cool stuff, but if you don't keep it up, you don't know that stuff, and you don't, like it, but it's really important to know. I think it's really important to know. So it was nice to kind of get my hands a little dirty and just, remember how to do all that stuff. So I thought that was good.
The nice thing about carbs though is carbs haven't really changed. Not like cars in comparison to 10 years ago.
Sure.
The technology in cars in comparison to
and I'll say that like four-wheelers
is old technology, right?
Yeah.
It's all EFI now.
So. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that if there was any complexity, like this is just like a base model four-wheeler. So if there was any complexity to it, I would be so out of my depth. Like my skills end at, changing fluids. I've done a couple of like belts before, and I can do tires for the most part, but
that sounds to me like you are still way ahead of the average person.
100%.
I mean, yeah. So my dad taught my sisters and I like how to change tires as soon as we were old enough to drive. He's like, and that was obviously because he was like, you guys are going to be out and about. Yeah. But a big part of him was like, I don't want to get that call.
Yeah.
Like late at night being like, Dad, can you come and change my tire? Like that was just not obviously
or depend on a complete stranger coming down the road, or you're on a road where there's only a vehicle every 3 hours. Right?
Well,
you're
exactly.
Not stuck there, no cell reception. Like, it's a good thing to show people. It should be taught in schools in general, but
didn't it used to be? Didn't that used to be? That was like the auto and shop thing.
Yeah, it depends on the school and the school board and stuff like that. Like
they all suck now. So
but even then, it wasn't a mandatory class. Like you took at least the basics, right? Like
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
to make craft dinner without burning the house down, how to change a tire and top up your washer fluid and check your oil, and how to like hem a pair of pants, right? Like
I was
that
gonna
would
say,
be
wasn't that when like home ec was also kind of a thing that people had to
yeah,
take?
right.
Yeah,
but it was
for me, it was mandatory, all of those things to
Mhm.
at least be like exposed to them in like grade 6, 7, and 8. Those were all mandatory. Well, not auto shop wasn't mandatory, but regular shop was. I didn't have an auto shop until I was in high school, but even then in my
Yeah.
first year, we had one like mandatory class that was like auto shop, electronics, and like something else all in one class. You did like a little sampler for a semester.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then the following years you could figure out like, hey, I
Yeah.
enjoyed mechanics over the other things. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I had woodworking in 7th, 8th grade, which was like, yeah, here's a bunch of like fancy popsicle sticks and like build the deck, right?
Sure. Why can't we
Like-
see you, Pierre?
Because I have my camera off.
Okay. Got to start wearing pants to these things, man.
Never.
Anywho's moving on. Pierre, what you drinking? What you doing? How are you up in your game?
I am currently drinking whiskey, and then I've got some
Shocker.
leftover. I still have some leftover brandy from
Ooh.
the honeymoons. I've got a little glass of that because running late a little bit tonight, as most people have noticed. Skills.
I'm eating dinner.
Yeah, I guess we'll call it that. But went to the range the other day. Got
Oh,
a little bit
nice.
of fun. Yeah, had a little family day. Got the daughter, her little 22. She's got one of those youth rascals there, like
Mhm.
what is it, like 16-inch rifle, single shot 22. Got her involved, and hey, let's make sure it works as it's supposed to at home, and then got her out to the range. And it was a little windy and cold, but she had a complete blast. She must have popped like, I don't know, 40, 50 rounds through that single shot, just aiming at the target, hitting fairly consistent for, a 10-year-old with a really, really crappy scope on it. But, at 45 yards, she was hitting a pie plate. So I'm like, it's pretty deep. Yeah.
Got to start
that's-
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, that's
And that's
pretty
not bad,
decent.
yeah.
So I'm like, let's just keep aiming at the same spot. And it was varying a little bit. She got a little cold. We had brought some snacks, spent a few hours at the range, and then just worked on our 22 game, and then getting ready for a bigger big boy course coming up this weekend. So got
That's
all
right.
that packed away and everything. So yeah, that's about it
That's
that I can
awesome.
think of. Yeah. What about you, Gavin?
Well, I am drinking some whiskey and at Diet Pepsi this evening.
Good old Gavin's back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had my ultrasound today as a
Pregnant?
follow-up.
Are you pregnant?
Yes, I'm with child,
Mhm.
so I should probably stop drinking, but
Yeah.
whatevs.
I know.
No, I was for my blood clot. They didn't seem to see anything. I mean, not that the attendant can tell me because they're not the doctor, but there was no like, you should probably go talk to your doctor now.
Sure. Yeah.
So
You can kind of tell. Like,
yeah, there was no like, yeah, so you should maybe follow up a little bit sooner. There's none of that. So it sounds like everything is good for the most part. Do some blood work in a couple of weeks still to see if my blood's clotting or not. So
it's all right.
Yeah.
Good.
so I guess like that's something that I was doing for my health and stuff, but also drinking my water and everything else. So
I
all
feel
that.
like once you're on the track for having drank that much water, like, how do you go back?
Yeah, it's true. Like I've got, I don't know, about a half liter left of my 4 liters for the day.
Okay, so you're still like,
I took a couple of
Hustling hard.
days, took a couple of days off of that, like just with traveling down to Tennessee and just like getting off 75 hard for a couple days. It was like, and I noticed it like almost instantly, like there was
Yeah.
like a dip in how I felt when I
like your
stopped
energy.
drinking.
Is that the biggest thing?
Well, just like in general, just like not necessarily energy, but just like not feeling as good. Like I
Mm.
can't really put like it felt, exactly like this. It was just like a general meh.
Mhm.
But like,
Yeah.
anecdotally, I can also kind of say that like I've had to do a bunch of blood work lately, and like historically it never went well for me. Like they could never, every time they would try to stick the thing
Mm.
in to my veins, like they would either just like seem to roll out of the way,
Yeah.
or one time they're like, well, so like we're in your vein, but like it doesn't want to give up the blood.
Nothing is happening. That's not
Be
a
a
good
horrible-
sign.
You'd be a horrible junkie.
Yeah. So the only thing that I can really see that's made any sort of difference lately is me drinking more water than I used to drink, which
Mm.
was like almost nothing. So
That's a big deal though.
I don't
Because-
know if that's the thing or not, but like now it's like,
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
That could be it.
yeah.
That's a
So
thing.
yeah.
That's awesome though.
But yeah,
That's
so
a good enough. That's a good enough reason to keep drinking the water, right?
well, yeah, it's like it, and it's not like, I mean, needles don't bug me and blood doesn't bug me, but like, I don't know, because of how much difficulty it always was, like sticking the damn thing in my vein in my elbow there.
Mhm.
I just never
Yeah.
liked it. And it always just like,
You dreaded it.
Yeah.
Because you knew it was going to be a battle and you were going to be.
yeah, like
You
they
know,
have
get
to stick
jabbed
me in
like
the arm
50
multiple
times, yeah.
times. Yeah, and it's just like, oh,
Yeah.
just like I just don't want, and it's like an uncomfortable feeling for me. But like
Yeah.
being able to do it and get it over with easily just certainly makes it easier to go and do. So
Yep.
yeah,
That's
no
awesome.
scientific proof, but anecdotally.
No,
Yeah,
there's
and-
scientific proof about
Well,
your
yeah, but like,
vascular health and water consumption. There is absolutely.
yeah, but I don't have any like scientific
Yeah.
data that I can say that like, oh, I drank this much water previously and now it's this.
I would
but
say
like
no. Okay, so
my experience has shown that yes, it
yes,
supports
that it
the,
aligns with the scientifically
Yeah.
proven. Yeah.
Yes.
Right,
No, that's
it's
fair.
It's funny because I was talking to one of my friends, and he started getting on. He's a big coffee drinker, drives a truck for a living. So you want to
Mhm.
moderate what you drink because bathrooms are not easily accessible sometimes.
And
but he's
that's
starting to
just
get-
a generally unhealthy profession.
Yeah. But just he wants to drink more water, so he started doing some stuff and everything, and he started talking to one of the guys at the office, and the guy at the office, sits at his desk, bathroom right around the corner and everything, and couldn't fathom of drinking 2, 3, 4 liters of water a day. But when the shift's done, he's got no problems pumping 8 beers back.
Yeah,
So,
that's a
Right.
Yeah.
And I told him, I'm like, if it's a habit he really wants to get into, I was like, tell him to set a 30, when he gets into the office, he's got his 1-2 liter, whatever bottle of water. I was like, and set a 30-minute timer. And when that timer goes off, at least take a sip of water. I'm like,
Yeah.
do that consistently. That I'm like, eventually you don't need the alarm. I was like, it becomes second habit. I was like, you just got to get used to like the constant
Yeah.
consumption of water, right? So yeah, so like a few people are like, okay, that's a good idea. So yeah, they've got depending on what they do, an hour timer. When the timer goes off, they take not just wet their lips, but they take a good sip of water and then restart the timer. And I'm like, I find one of the easiest ways to like get into drinking the waters. Either that or work outside in the summer and drink
that's
9
actually a
liters of
great
water.
idea.
Yeah, I'm like, it's so simple. Your phone is always glued to you. Your phone goes off, you
Mhm.
stare at it. I was like, just set yourself a half-hour timer. And then at the end of the day, if it's getting close to it or whatever, you can like cancel it. It won't go off while you're on your way home, nothing. But I'm like,
Mhm.
because every time your phone goes off, you can cancel or restart. So I'm like, take a good sip of water, restart the timer. I'm like, that's a good way to start. If you're not a big water drinker, that's a good way to just bring a liter and every half hour take a good sip. And yeah, you'll get it. You'll make that habit real fast.
Yep.
Was perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. I need to be better at it.
I'm pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the water, I barely have any issues with it. I drink a cup of coffee in the morning, bring a 20, 30 ounce cup of coffee with me. And now that the warm weather's coming, I'm gonna bring easily 2 to 4 liters of water with me during the day. I got no problems drinking water.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get a little bored by it, but I find that once, like when I was drinking that much water, I was finding that it was fine. Like it's actually easier to go down the more you drink the water.
Mhm.
Like, and did you find, Gavin, that you kind of craved it? You were like, oh, I don't have water in my hand.
Yeah, basically, like I'll especially like kind of the way I like I'll try to get like 3 liters in before lunch just so that I'm not up all night peeing.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
there's definitely like that morning if I haven't got the 3 liters in like in that afternoon, I'm like, man,
need
I
water.
really need some water. Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking all about this water, you can go on the and join the Patriot Challenge that talks about how much water you consume.
Indeed.
You can find the template on our website. By our,
Indeed.
I really mean
Yeah, it's ours.
Andrew
Other people's?
and Gavin's.
It's ours. No, we're all part of the
Ours.
team. It's
Yeah.
a team thing.
Sweet, I get a participation badge.
Yeah, you do. By
but-
the way, I'm gonna shout out for off the wall customizing right now. My brother-in-law loved his shirt for his birthday.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's
Bearded
awesome to hear.
Wisdom
And-
was just on point.
Yeah, that was the thing. We're shout out to a listener that was very patient because we got an email and coming back from honeymoon wedding. We were gone for a week, so getting the house reorganized and then hanging out with the daughter because she missed us, and then us getting back into the groove, going back to work or whatever. We kind of forgot about an email for a little bit, but we got back to him and everything. So we appreciate the patience because it is a part-time thing, and
No, it's good though. You guys have always been really good.
yeah,
Honestly. For anybody that wants a great gift, Kier was wearing the funniest shirt. And I was like, I want that shirt. And so I gave my brother-in-law for his 40th birthday, I gave him that shirt and I gave him some 30-year-old scotch and a cigar.
Nice.
Yeah.
can't go wrong with all
Yeah.
of the above.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't give him the whole bottle of 30-year-old scotch because that was just it. I gave him a little mason jar full.
Why
That's
not?
fair. That's fair.
Yeah. It's like, oh, but it was good.
Yes,
Cool.
but thank you. But yes, we'd love to hear your feedback, whether it's about our crazy side tangents or anything. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. Version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
Nice. Upcoming events, you've heard us talk about them a bunch. But I'll just recap them here in case this is your first time listening. The Varistoleka Remote Military March is April 28th and 29th. The Resu 4-day march is May 18th to 21st. The Army Run is a virtual event, and it's in September between the 8th and the 29th. You can join all of our clubs for all of the things because they're fun. The news.
Before we hit the news, do you guys have any courses coming up while we're talking about events?
I mean, there sort of is one coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
It's not officially one of our events, although we are involved in it heavily.
Only a little.
So it is not run through us, it is run by us. So there is an ORA precision rifle intro course this weekend, of which Dave is the lead instructor on, and then Andrew and myself allegedly will be there to help out.
So I guess, are you guys just kind of gauging, like how well this goes to see? Because it was all booked up, right? There was a wait list.
Yes. And one of the panelists will even be at that course, rumor has it.
Rumor has it.
Yes.
Yes, thankfully my significant other was right up Dave's ass to make sure that I was on the course.
Yeah, so Dave runs the PR program for the Ontario Rifle Association, which, for those of you that don't know what that is, PR is a specific shooting event that focuses on, you guessed it, precision rifle shooting.
I was going to say, does it stand for precision rifle?
Yes, but it is like a specific course of fire that is the same course of fire every time you go and shoot the match. So it's very good for fundamentals. So for people that have heard us talk about service pistol in the past, it is very similar, except instead of with the little gun and up close, you have the longer gun and you're further
Mhm.
back. So it'll be like you start out at this distance and you shoot X number of shots at the target in X amount of time frame.
Yeah.
And they'll have different ones where it'll be, you've got a minute to shoot 2 rounds, or
Yeah.
then you've got 30 seconds to shoot one, but the target is going to pop up randomly inside that time period. And then they also have movers where it'll pop up on one side of the sort of arc of fire that is yours. For those that have shot on a military gallery range, there's the different things, and they're a couple of feet wide, so
Yeah.
it'll pop up and then move across and then disappear.
Oh, cool.
So you need to shoot the target inside of that time frame when it's visible.
That's neat.
So
So-
there's
Sure. No, go ahead.
yeah,
So I guess my question is, are you guys open to receiving emails from people who are maybe interested of knowing when you guys are putting on the next one, or if is that a good
Yes.
way to,
Yep.
garner
no, you can
kind of
absolutely
data as to whether or not there's enough interest to put on
Yes.
another one?
Yes, for any listeners that are interested in shooting or taking classes of any kind, we teach all of the shooting things.
And you guys teach navigation classes, which are
Yeah.
great.
Yes, we do. That is how we met you.
It's so
And then-
true.
Then strong armed you into being on the podcast.
No, it's super fun. You guys are putting up with me. I'm enjoying it.
Yes, just shoot me an email, gavin@ragnaroktactical.ca, and we can add you to the list.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.
You
The
guys
plan
need
is
to
for us
promote
to,
some of this stuff better because you
Well,
guys
I
have
mean,
a lot of good teachables.
the COVID thing kind of put a damper on all of the teaching and trying to
and
get in with
DOIC.
gun clubs. Yeah.
It's true.
We're gonna definitely try to, now that we've got some free time and everything seems to be wide open because COVID, what's that? We only talked about it every day for 2.5 years ish. And
Yeah.
now we're just forget it. Doesn't exist
Oh.
anymore. Now we're worried about the avian flu again. But it's cool. We're gonna just kill all of the birds in case they get the flu. But
Yeah, it's insane.
yeah, so now that things are more wide open, we're going to do that. And yes, the PR/long range course is one that we've been trying to get off the ground for a little while. So this will be our first run at the program. It was nice for the ORA to sort of facilitate it for their members who are definitely interested in this stuff, because they run matches at least
Mhm.
once a month for the next, I don't know, 5 months, 6 months, something like that, till October. So
That's good.
good times.
Yeah.
Awesome.
want to start dabbling my toes in it. And I figured that'd be the best way is go learn
Yeah.
from people that have done it and take in all of the infos.
Well,
and
I'd
hopefully
like
do
to
one
as
this
well.
year. Yeah.
Well, don't worry. We can set up a fun day as well.
Well, so I was hoping to maybe get out to this weekend, but between probably not having the right rifle, I don't think I do. Dave was saying I probably don't, but also just the weekend I'm in. It turns out I'm listening to bagpipes and hanging out with Scottish people and whiskey in New York City this weekend. So
That doesn't sound horrible.
No.
That doesn't sound bad at all.
Yeah.
it's not at
Don't worry.
all. So
we can
it's-
absolutely have a fun rifle day too. Don't worry.
I appreciate that because I don't know. I am quite limited in my knowledge of this kind of thing. So I for sure enjoy learning new things. So
I hope you're good at math.
I'm decent at math. Like,
Don't worry, the computer will do all the math for you.
okay, I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
was like, I can do like basic financial accounting
Yeah.
math, but
No.
No, this is
No.
all angular measurement and
oh, good.
but yeah, don't worry, the computer does all the math.
I
for
enjoy
you.
some of that
You-
stuff, though.
You just have to know what it means.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
when it spits out do this, you have a working knowledge of it, and all you need to do is go, yeah, okay. And now I turn the knob this way to make that thing go.
I like
That's
it.
So
I like
super
it.
easy. Don't worry. It's not as complicated as it sounds. It
Oh,
used to be
what
when you had to
was-
do all the math yourself.
Yeah, but
It's
now
fair.
there's how many apps out there that literally do
Oh.
everything for you as long as you put the information in.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I believe it. But I mean, I think it's good that you guys are running some of these courses too. And for folks like myself who, I've kind of dabbled for years, but never really developed any actual skill. So anyways, my interruption on your schedule of events.
No, I mean, it ties in well because like we were talking about guns and now we're going to talk about guns in the
Guns.
news. Yeah.
Yes.
It's true.
So yes, Alberta government announces firearms legislation to give province more authority over regulation. So much like some of the other provinces have kind of come out and announced, Alberta will be doing the same thing. So Alberta United Conservative Party government announced provincial firearms legislation Tuesday, offering more clarity for gun owners and more provincial authority over regulations. If passed, the Bill 8, Alberta Firearms Act, would allow the government to develop regulations that it sees as necessary to protect gun owners in the province.
So now there's like 3 or 4 provinces and territories
Yes.
that have stated that they are doing something in response to this federal move, but they're all of their legislation or next steps seem to be just slightly different, right?
Yeah,
so
they all seem to be a little.
they're
The
not
problem
quite the
the
same.
problem is the same, but they're all taking sort of a different approach at dealing with it.
Yeah, so Alberta's a little bit more. I'm not at all surprised the stance that they took, because theirs was a little bit more like, we're taking back our provincial autonomy instead of the federal government regulating that. I think we talked about that, probably half a dozen episodes ago.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it's good that it's still moving along and that people haven't forgotten about it. Because that's the other thing, is that, sometimes they talk a good talk, but it doesn't really get processed through, right? And then it just kind of falls between the cracks. But of all the provinces, I am not shocked that Alberta is taking such a hard-nosed stance on this. Like, they probably have. Am I wrong in assuming that they probably have one of the largest population of firearms owners per capita?
I mean,
right? Like per capita,
I'd have
like
to look
Ontario's like provincially more
population-wise,
populated. But percentage wise,
I would say that they have a pretty high.
I would, without looking at statistics, I wouldn't bet money on it. Like, I'd bet you a beer. That you're probably right. But
like, so I think just the demographic of people makes
and the area, the feel of the peoples in the province, right? Like, it is a big thing out there. And I mean, like, I hate to shit on the parade because like this is kind of good news, but I'm like, there's all this.
Please shit on the parade.
But it,
and that's what we do best.
But it, Alberta, it looks like they're stepping forward along with a bunch of other provinces, territories, whatever. And I'm like, it looks good, but I'm like, at the end of the day, I was like, it's still a politician saying they're going to do something. Yes. And it's not official, right? Like, like as it stands right now, it's a bunch of people flapping their gums because nothing has passed.
Yes, but I mean, step one is putting it forward, right? So they've done that now.
Yeah. So I mean, step one is good, but I mean, until it passes, right? So it's like, okay, here's our step one. But say there's controversy, it doesn't pass. So I'm like, I want to be very, very excited for this because it's a step in the right direction for hopefully other provinces to follow, and hopefully the government to realize, like, look, we're not the problem. Us people, like, you banned a bunch of stuff 3 years ago, coming up on 3 years now, right? It was 2020, May 2020, where the OIC came in, right? And like, nothing has changed, right? Like, other than people having stuff that they can normally legally go do the fun stuff with in a responsible manner, haven't.
I'm looking at my ARs right now, hanging on the wall, and
right,
They're still
and
sitting
like
there.
nothing has changed. Yeah, they're still sitting there and nothing. So like I'm really hopeful that all these provinces that are putting and territories or whatever that are putting these things forward, like it's just a bunch of flapping gums. Like I'm
Yeah,
hopeful,
no,
but I'm not getting my hopes up just because I'm like, it is still a politician
Yeah.
saying we're gonna do this. So they say all these things, and then like
Yeah.
one thing goes through, and they're like, wow, there was backlash. At least we did something. We did better than Ontario, obviously, right? Like, so
Yeah,
yeah,
I have some pretty, like, I agree, like it's not a done deal until it's done, and even then, like anything
the
in government
execution on it?
can be undone come
Mhm.
the next, majority government that
Usually when it's in legislation, it doesn't get,
No, but I mean,
rescinded, but
it can be undone when you get a
Yeah.
next majority
Oh, for
government that
sure.
has
Yeah,
the
yeah.
will to do it.
well, they're gonna
Yeah.
layer stuff on it is what happens. And
but-
that's what, like, because you don't hear too much of like, actually policy being retracted upon. But there's
Yeah.
just
Yep.
so many layers that they add to it. And
Yeah.
I'm with you in a sense that it's really hard to take this serious until it's been,
Yeah.
totally ratified in the appropriate ways that, it needs to be, just because
Yeah.
we've kind of seen it time and again. And I mean, Ontario's a perfect example. We have such polarizing political dynamics right now, yet at the same time, if you kind of take a step back, you're like, hey, it's the same type of people. It's just,
Yeah.
if
Just-
they
Well,
were to call
it's-
an election today, you'd be voting for who's the least awful.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, politically, it seems that the prairie provinces seem to be more on the page as like within the province than
Yeah.
say Ontario, that is split,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Our election, I mean, every now and again, some provinces make some terrible ideas and vote in a whole lot of NDP, but like they usually, like, that happens for like one term and they're like, that was horrible. Let's never do that again until we forget about it and do it again, a few elections from now. But like, as a whole, like, there are certainly pockets in the more, urban areas where votes will differ. But given that the vast majority of the provinces are rural, there's a lot more alignment of values across the province compared to Ontario, that is just so divided, with having so many large city centers and then like
Well,
everything else. But
I think it's also like the federal representation combined with the provincial
that
representation.
too, right? It overrides on the federal side.
And it really, like, a lot of people are not politically sound enough. Like, I am no political expert. I have taken one political science course in university, and
Done more than I have.
well, but
And
at the
listen to my fucking
time,
rambles.
I didn't really understand half of it. So I participated, I showed up, but did I absorb? Probably not. But either way, and that was like a dozen years ago, but either way, I think that there's like a huge misunderstanding of the entire like political system.
Well, how
So
it
a
works, the
lot of
division
peop-
of powers and
Yeah.
all of there's a lot of yeah.
Well,
And I
and
mean-
that really screws people up when you are provincially
Yeah.
and federally in the same geographic location, right? Like it
Yeah.
really messes people up. So
And I mean, like, even to just go on like why nobody understands anything or understands politics, like going back to this article, not too far down, it says after receiving backlash, the federal government recently dropped amendments to C-21 government's gun control legislation. Proposed amendments to Bill C-21 included banning automatic hunting rifles.
mhm.
Who the
Yeah.
fuck is hunting with automatic hunting rifles?
Yeah, nobody since the 60s. Yeah.
Yeah, nobody, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
like, so people list. So depending which side of the spectrum you are, so
Yeah.
I mean, if you own a gun, you understand that this is all bullshit. But if you're an anti-gunner, they're like, oh my god, they're
What, they
going
want to
out.
hunt with automatic rifles?
Well,
Yeah,
so the-
like,
and
so
that's
they're
the
all
other
thinking that
problem.
scene, right?
Yeah.
They're all thinking that scene from Predator, or a whole bunch of stuff where like a guy's just mowing down the forest,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
hoping to get Bambi because he paid his
Yeah.
$30 to go get attacked. Like,
Well, and
So-
that's the problem, is that like a lot of people don't understand, like, it's a narrative that's projected about, like, oh, an AR, whatever. And it's like, AR doesn't stand for assault rifle. Like,
Well, maybe
Right.
not in your world.
right. But you know what I mean? Like, that's,
Yeah.
it's just
Everybody
such a
knows that it
misnomer.
stands for awesome rifle.
Right. No, but I mean, just the whole presentation of what's going on is the most ridiculous thing in the world. Right. And people are just being sensationalized by, the words being used and the narrative being projected. And unfortunately, the people that are watching the news are the same people that are actually getting out and voting and actually raising their voice, because we currently have a silent majority.
Yep.
So, like, what else is going to happen? And we've definitely talked about that a lot before, but it's kind of a whole thing.
Yeah, so not to shit on Alberta, but I'm happy this news article came out, and I mean,
Well,
I am just gonna wait and see what happens.
yeah.
And then I will form a legit opinion, but it's still a politician saying something that
I mean, their
as we have
track
seen-
record so far has been pretty good, but it has yet to
Yep.
happen yet. But
So,
maybe this will give you some hope here. Saskatchewan
Mhm.
has passed their Firearms Act. So
This one's different though. How does this one protect? Like, it's very different than what Alberta was.
the Alberta one, there's not a whole lot of details on it right now, and they intentionally said they've left it kind of vague so that they can be nimble, as they quoted it, which I get, because like if you get too specific,
it can be limiting for sure.
yes, there can be loopholes, right?
Yeah.
And this is, as we've seen, being gun owners, where we comply with the rules as they are written.
Yeah. Well,
Right,
that's
and
all
it
you
is-
can do. That's all
It
you
is,
can do.
but I mean,
because it's interpretation of the law, right? So
yeah, but when they get so specific, all we have to do is not do that thing in order to
Yeah.
comply with the law.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
by keeping the law somewhat vague, it gives you some leeway to go one way or the other. So it's great when
Yeah.
it's working in your favor. It sucks when it's not. But so the Saskatchewan one is a little bit more specific, I think, but it does the same
Mhm.
thing, and it puts a lot of protections in place, but it passed unanimously. So,
There's some things about Saskatchewan.
well, and this is where I had to look
it
and
does.
see what the political party breakdown was. So, at least according to the Wikipedia, which, as we know, is the source for all knowledge in the planet,
Oh, successful knowledge.
the
Yeah.
current party standings for Saskatchewan are 45 seats for the Saskatchewan Party, which according to them is a center-right/right-wing conservative party. The New Democratic Party with 12 seats. The Saskatchewan United Party, which is a right-wing party. And then 3 vacant seats, which total 61. And of those 61 seats, 45 people got up to vote for this, and all 45 of them voted in favor of it, including all NDP seats. So even the NDP was in favor of basically giving a giant middle finger to Trudeau. So
Good.
that's sort of interesting that they're on board with this. But I mean, being a more rural province, and having sort of the typical NDP voter that is maybe struggling more financially than some of the other people, and probably does a lot of hunting for food.
Yeah.
This is a good place for the NDP to show support for those people and not have their means of getting food be banned. We've talked about the Saskatchewan before, where it does some of the same things, where they've made it so that like they will not spend a single penny. So even though Saskatchewan uses the RCMP for their policing of the province, they have said that not a single penny of provincial money will be used to fund any of this. And anyone that is going to do a confiscation of any kind will need to, 1, have their PAL, and 2, have a license to go and confiscate.
Yeah, which is issued by the province.
Yes.
Because
Didn't Alberta also put that in their
I haven't
potential?
seen that,
No,
but it would be interesting
so-
to see when they do sort of flush out the details a little more.
So in this article, it says Saskatchewan will not fund federal gun buyback, joining Alberta, and then there's a link
Mhm.
to that ad. But I
Yeah.
got completely side. Oh, son of a bitch! I think I lost it. Hold on. No. So I scrolled to the bottom where they have a bunch of clickbait news articles or whatever, and I'm like, I really hate to go on a little side tangent, but
Stop
The
watching
landmark-
porn while we're on a podcast here.
I'll send you
Yeah.
the link privately because you'll think differently. But no, complete side tangent. I did find
I guess
a ready
Ask for
aim
that.
date set for the landmark fire case. So literally tomorrow,
Yep.
the CCFR are going against the government of Ontario or Canada, sorry,
Yep.
which I mean same difference. Is against the OIC or whatever. I didn't know
Yeah.
that it was actually starting because I just don't listen to the news. I get
No,
all my
no,
news
they
feeds on
it's
Monday
none of
nights.
this stuff is publicly announced.
Right. So like I saw this article and I read it real quick and then we were talking and I hit back
Yeah.
to go back to the news article and then I couldn't find it again. So thankfully I could go forward or whatever. But
Look at you
yeah,
knowing how to use the technologies.
yeah. I mean, in some cases, but I'm just happy to see that at least
Mhm.
by fluke I at least saw this. So yeah,
Yeah.
it says April 11th.
Yeah.
And they're 9 days, is it? I think I
Yeah,
saw-
something
yeah,
like that. At least that's
9
what's
days
scheduled for
here.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, 9 days, and yeah, it starts tomorrow. So I was like, that's at least a step in the right direction. Just like the Alberta doing the things where I'm like, it's a politician
Well,
still saying
it's-
it. So I have my,
Yeah. But I mean,
things, but-
like we've seen the
Mhm.
Saskatchewan started by saying it too, and they've made good on their promise, and it looks like the entire province is on board with this, which is great.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
whether this actually does anything, like we've sort of said before, like they can't stop the feds from doing stuff that is under their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
like,
But they can make it really hard
Yeah.
for them
Because-
to act it out.
Because what is it, right? Like the provinces or the areas that use RCMP as local jurisdiction, they pay what, $70, 70 cents on the dollar?
I don't have to see what that is, but I mean, basically, they're not going to pay for the time for anyone to do this, which means that the feds will have to do that. And then if they also need the license and everything else, there will be a number of hoops that they need to jump through. So if nothing else, it makes it more difficult. It makes it, more costly and everything else. So
It's
it
just like
becomes
a
less
whole
likely.
department is going to have to be pretty much built around
Yeah.
the confiscation.
Yeah,
of-
Right. So what I mean by that, but also what I mean by the 70 cents on the dollar, right? So to run a provincial or municipal police force or whatever, it would cost, let's just use round numbers, right? $100,000.
Yep.
So the RCMP has stepped in and said, you get, municipality, province, whatever, give us 70,000 and we'll take the responsibility of it.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is that like the province will not pay, that 70% of, such officer,
Well,
whether on duty, off duty, overtime pay,
they'll
whatever.
still
They'll
have
they'll
to
pay them for do
the
their
regular stuff,
thing.
but they
Yeah,
will not.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're taking 3 hours to go confiscate a rifle or
That
a
3 hours
firearm or
will need
whatever
to be paid.
by the federal government,
Yeah.
not the provincial funds. Yeah.
In case
So,
you're
yeah.
wondering, that still comes out of our tax dollars.
Yes.
It doesn't matter.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yes,
it does
but-
make it
and-
does make it like a little bit of a bitch for logistics for the federal government.
Well,
So if
and-
nothing else,
So it depends
gonna
if
make
they
a
were
rethink.
still using the Phoenix pay
Anytime
system or not.
there's but like anything that goes through that will need to be voted on a budget.
yeah, absolutely.
So
but-
to,
Uh,
That's
I
a whole
know,
other
but
thing. That's
Yes,
a whole
but-
other thing.
they can't do anything until it's put into a budget and
It's true.
approved. So like it's not that it won't happen,
No,
yeah.
but
right?
it's at least
just-
got a
it-
year.
It adds some delays to
Yeah,
the
it
thing,
adds-
so they'll have to do a thing and then put it in a budget and then allocate the money
Yeah.
and do all the things, and then it'll
Which
show
is-
what it's going to cost, which then potentially makes things less palatable to people. and can potentially create more backlash. And then again, like if they even do go through all of those hoops and then do actually go and confiscate from somebody, the other steps that Saskatchewan is taking basically means then that if they come and take it and charge you, they will be the ones to decide whether it goes to court or not, at least provincially.
Yeah.
And they will likely drop it. That doesn't mean that you get your guns back, but then it will then cost the feds again because they will have to pursue that at the federal court level.
Yep.
So it just adds more levels of expense and complexity on the federal end of it. So doesn't stop it, but it certainly makes it way more cumbersome and expensive to do. So hopefully Alberta and what was it? Manitoba, was it? Or was no, it was one of the territories, I think, that said something, wasn't it?
Yukon, I think.
Yeah. That is also working on this, but hopefully they all pass it and hopefully others step up as well. I mean, at the very least, Ontario, I can't imagine BC will, because
No, BC's got its own set of issues.
yeah,
Um,
the left coast is always the weird coast.
yeah. And I mean, Ontario, I really have very limited hope for Ontario because
Oh, yeah,
again,
I
like
don't trust Fat Man to do anything, but like,
but even just like the people in Ontario, like here's the problem is that when
yeah,
we talk about the silent majority, we forget that that majority might also be in Ontario. You know,
Yep.
like we look at Ontario and we're like, hey, a lot of, you know, the left leaning or I
Non-white,
guess
I mean, yes.
yeah.
no, the
was-
left leaning folks that are, you know, politically loud and kind
Yeah.
of driving some of the policy. We say that a lot of them live in Ontario, which is not wrong, but we
Yeah.
also got to remember that a lot of the folks that, you know, make up that silent majority also live in Ontario too. So here's to just hoping that at some point
yeah,
that silence is going to become a little bit more deafening in a good way, you know, where people are just going to say, okay, enough. You
yeah.
know,
I was
because-
really hoping like when the whole Emergencies Act inquiry was going on and like
Ugh.
Trudeau and Ford were like butting heads and throwing each other under the bus, that Ford would have
Something
used
would
that
have happened.
opportunity to do this, because that's when like the other provinces announced that they were doing this and basically said like, screw you, Trudeau. I thought that would have been an excellent opportunity for him to grow a set and like be like, you know what, fuck you. But
Yeah.
no.
And
So yeah, zero faith in Ford doing the right thing, but it would be nice.
It would be nice, but yeah, I have limited to no faith in
Yeah.
that as well.
politicians, policies, everything.
Yeah, I have more faith in him restraining himself from eating the cheeseburger that's in front of him than doing anything in our favor. So
Yeah,
but,
As
you
I
know,
eat the chili in front of me.
that's all right. I know that
that's all right. We're not
you
talking
would do
about
the right
you.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah,
you
we're
would,
not
you
talking
would
about
do
you.
the right thing.
Oh, I would do the right thing, but it's just funny you bring up eating a cheeseburger in front of.
Yeah, but
I was like,
but
oh,
you're eating chili, which is different than a cheese. I mean, maybe it's all the cheeseburger parts in it, but that's beside the point.
But without
It
the bread,
is,
unless you
yeah.
ripped up a bun and threw it in there. But yeah. All right, on to the next thing.
mhm.
The Mass Casualty Commission report prompts skepticism from ex-Mounties. So the Mass Casualty Commission, so the committee that was put together,
Was this
But they did-
following the Nova Scotia thing?
yes,
And
the
then,
committee that got put together because nobody wanted to put a committee together,
sure.
and then they reluctantly put a committee together because they were kind of forced to do it because everyone wanted answers, has now
What?
come out. Yeah, I know, shocking. The biggest mass murder in Canadian history, and they didn't want to publicize anything about it.
Because it was a
Um,
giant fail in law enforcement.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
if you
so-
read the recommendations here,
Well, so the unfortunate
they
thing
don't
is-
help at all.
No, but the Western Star is blocked by pay to view this article, which I'm kind of disappointed on because
Oh, I didn't have to pay
and-
to view this.
Well, I do. I click on the thing and it's there, but then it says log in, sign up for free or whatever.
Oh, no, I
on
got the
this
whole
specific.
Well,
Yeah, so I don't. So please fill me in because I have watched some of the information and videos people critiquing this, which made me
Yeah.
spend $600 on potential things that are firearms related that I was worried they may ban at some point, which
Yeah,
I
so-
may or may not have.
yeah.
Cliff's notes on this. Gavin,
Yeah.
go.
Well, I guess first thing is here that they're saying that the report explained the policing failures that occurred during the 13-hour killing spree of 22 people and
Okay,
recommended systemic changes to the RCMP. It also,
To indicate the systemic changes.
Yeah. So
yeah,
how
if you
is
read
there
through
any?
it, but
Okay.
it also
But, like, this guy was
exonerated
white.
Brenda
This guy was
Lucky
white, so
Mhm.
it
of
has nothing to do
political
with racism.
interference.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with racism and a systematic. Or systematic.
Yeah, that's not what
however
they're
you say
talking. They're
that
not
word.
talking about racism, though. They're talking about
Ah.
systematic or systemic problems
Yeah.
in terms
Systemic,
of organization.
Yeah.
So did they
and everything
elaborate?
Yeah,
Cold
if
note
you
on the
go through it, but
elaboration?
like,
Okay,
but the
well,
biggest
if it's not
problem
important,
here,
carry on.
the biggest problem here is that they have exonerated Brenda Lucky
Didn't
of
she step
political.
down though?
Yeah.
She has since
Mhm.
stepped down, but
Yeah.
like,
Which is a good indication of guilt.
yes, but the commission that was put together to find the problems have said that the crazy RCMP commissioner that sent all those emails,
Yeah.
you know, telling them to do things at the behest of the prime minister, which is absolutely political interference,
100%.
has been exonerated. So found not guilty of doing political interference.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
but
cute.
it's just so okay. Sarcastic / devil's advocate. The standard has
Curious.
been set so low
Yeah.
because interference and political manipulation has become normalized in everything that is being done. That
Well, I'm just surprised they haven't found money from the Chinese government in her bank account. Maybe
Yeah.
that's why she was
but
exonerated.
okay, but that also leads
Yeah.
like think about it, that MP that they did find, you know, serious ties to, the fact that that is everybody's just comfortable with it, like that's what I mean by this is normalized. Of course she is not going to face any repercussions. Of course Trudeau is not going to face any repercussions. Of course that MP is not going to face any repercussions of, you know, collusion with an enemy state. None of it. Okay. Because the standard has been set so ridiculously low that that isn't even shocking anymore. Like, you know, one side of the aisle has been yelling that this has been going on. And now when it's actually proven, everybody's like, oh, okay, well.
Well, okay. So my gut's feeling was right. And I mean, like, trust me, I'm one of the last people that want to shit on the Mounties and, you know,
Yeah,
the Queens
yeah.
Cowboys or whatever. I have 2 family members in the RCMP.
Listen,
Well,
there's good officers,
yeah,
but it
100%.
can be a bad system.
They're
Well,
not
and that's-
bad people.
And that's
and
what
yeah,
they're
like,
saying
as
is
we have
that
said-
the individual officers aren't the problem, it's the
Mhm.
organization.
Right.
And that's
But I
what
mean,
makes it a
let's say,
systemic
you know,
issue.
someone hit the big red button and the Queens Cowboys are gone. Like, that could,
Sure.
you know, potentially affect 2 people in the
Mhm.
families.
Yeah.
But I mean, but you also sit down with, I mean, one of the peoples in the Queens Cowboys. Like, we had a quick conversation. Like, somehow I got political and like got into whatever, and I was like, I'm just gonna shut my mouth before I'm not invited to anything anymore. But like,
Yeah.
you know, he was in full support of 90% of what we say, or, you know, like, hey,
Well,
they're
and I
not
think that's what it is,
responsible for
and
this, they're not
the-
responsible for that. And he's like, yeah, you want to defund a bunch of stuff? He's like, yeah, I'm all up for it to a
Mhm.
certain
Well, and
point.
this is the thing is
because-
so if we were to eliminate the RCMP,
Yeah.
those policing jobs don't go away,
No,
Mhm.
they don't.
right? Like those communities like Alberta, Saskatchewan,
Well,
like,
what? There's like 2 provinces. Yeah, only 2 provinces that actually have their own police force. So every other
their
province
own
and territory
so they're all
would
gonna,
Their own
have to develop their own police force.
and I
So-
imagine a lot of those
yeah,
former
those
RCMP
officers
members
would
would
be RCMP. It's
absolutely
just the
apply.
structural.
It's
Yeah.
exactly.
And that's
Right,
where
so-
you were talking about the systemic aspect of it. So the
Yeah.
way that the structure is set up is Like, and again, very limited in my history and knowledge of the RCMP organizational structure, but I don't really trust the federal government to do anything at this point. Like,
Yeah.
I trust the provincial government way more than I trust the
Yeah.
federal government. So when you've got the federal government trying to put in place a policing authority, a regulatory board of any kind, again, it reminds me of like what a waste of space CSIS has been in this whole, investigation. And like, they're all representing themselves as like useful as tits on a board, not very, right? Like, it just isn't.
So
it
federal
isn't happening. And
defense
again,
says
I'm not
the
talking
boar
about
identify as a
independent
female,
people.
though.
Pardon?
Does the boar identify as a female?
Oh,
I don't know. We'd have to
who
ask. him.
knows?
Like,
What's a
ask him.
woman?
Vice versa,
What's a
right? Or
woman?
does the boar identify as a female? Or no, the female and whatever.
I mean, yeah, and that's
Right,
something that, like
Yeah.
the government has been trapped into as well, right? Like, and you see that. But I would definitely say that some of the provincial manifestations of the law are a little bit more the hands and feet of actually doing work. And I have a lot more, it's not like it really matters. My opinion is like worth nothing, but
No,
I
just as
definitely
much as
have a
mine.
lot more respect for the provincial arm of just about anything over the federal. And,
So,
you know,
And I mean, and that's up for debate, right? Like you were saying, there's two provinces. So Ontario and Quebec are the only two that
Yeah.
have a provincial police force compared to the
Yeah.
RCMP. RCMP
No, I'm-
still
I'm-
operate in both.
pardon?
No.
Sorry.
So RCMP still operate in both, but
Just on the
So-
federal level though.
yeah. So on the federal, right? So I mean, if you go to Depot, which is the RCMP training, and you complete everything, it's like slim to none chances, if not impossible, to get back into Ontario or Quebec and pick up from there.
Yeah.
Because in Ontario and Quebec, I would relate them as much to the FBI in the States, which
Yeah.
is technically their
Yeah.
whatever, right? So they do international crimes,
Yep.
Yeah.
big things,
But-
right? These are the two provinces because Ontario has OPP, Quebec has Sûreté Québec, which is a
Mhm.
provincial police force, and they have OPP, so OPP and Sûreté Québec take care of those little niches where the RCMP would take care of in every other province, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
even in other provinces, you still have municipal police. You just don't have provincial police forces, which
Yeah,
you
but
drive
I
up
think
north,
it's a little bit.
there's no
even
North
then-
Bay police. It's
But I think it's a little bit
Yeah.
less likely to find municipal police and more federal or provincial representation in a
So-
police force. Like, because even in my area, up until fairly recently, the OPP policed a lot of southwestern Ontario. Like, you had to have a
100%.
city
and,
police.
and they still
So-
take a shitload of Northern Ontario,
And
which they've just
I will
replaced
say,
the
though,
RCMP.
and maybe
Yeah.
it's but it's a very different police force is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
Because like the direction and the chain of command caps so much lower, right? So there's less of a lost in translation process. And I'm not saying, like, don't get me wrong, the OPP has got their problems, but
Yes.
I would say that even looking
It's-
at like a more local level, like you get bigger municipal police forces, you get bigger regional police
Well,
forces.
the bigger
like,
an
it's so
organization
much-
gets, and it doesn't matter what the organization is and
Yeah.
what they stand for,
Yeah.
Yeah.
bigger they get, the more cumbersome they get, and the more
Yeah.
bureaucratic they get because they have
Absolutely.
to be.
Yep.
And it's much harder to have values that everybody agrees with when you have a more diverse group.
Yep.
The smaller the group, the easier it is for everyone to be 100% in agreement.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the police force that currently does my county is actually a city police that has been contracted because our county has just found
Yeah.
that city police has been super successful. So
Yeah,
like
they're not shitty fucking people.
but that's
in
exactly
most
it. And
scenarios.
like very
Yeah.
successful police force, actually, like one of the better in, Southwestern Ontario. They're a
Yeah.
little bit known for, being for their success rate. Right. And
Yeah.
because of that, they obviously have a little, like a little bit of clout, I guess, maybe. So it's worked out really well where I live, but I don't know. I just, and maybe it goes back to that idea of like tribalism that I think that for the most part, and just smaller communities. And we've kind of talked about this ad nauseum, and you can't really, it's hard to add to the conversation because I just feel like I'm, in circular conversation talking about the same thing again and again, because every situation that arises still brings me back to the same idea of like smaller government and, a little bit more accountability, because at this point as well, nobody's accountable for anything, right? Because it is such a big monster that, a group of people out in Nova Scotia were duds on the job, and not everybody, but like, and I don't necessarily blame the RCMP officers. Obviously their training and their, process was super flawed, right? Like, I really don't. A lot of the time, these folks are people who are like, it's a cookie cutter process. Yeah. So, like, you can't necessarily blame the individual. I mean, I can put things like integrity on the individual, but you can't put operational success on the individual all the time.
Did that person know about certain criterias and things?
Sure, there's a few key people that we could point some fingers at and be like, because you didn't act, or you acted in the wrong way, this went worse
completely
than it
sideways.
Could have been.
Right?
There was nothing, I mean,
100%.
Short of, arresting the guy before he did it because he was known to be a problem. But short of that, there was no way to stop it.
Well,
per se,
I mean,
right? And he would have gone and done it. But if they had their act together and those few key people had made better choices, then this could have been much reduced. And I think that's sort of where like this thing was trying to do, except that the problem is that like it utterly failed. And if you read what's his name here, retired Mountie Leland Keane, he says to suggest there was no political interference in the response from Brenda Lucki is falsehood. The use of this mass murder to push liberal NDP gun control while the victims were still warm is disgusting and an obvious political interference, and is possibly viewed by some as obstruction of a police officer in the Criminal Code of Canada under Section 129.
For sure.
The interference was well documented.
Well, and I do think that, that statement in and of itself does represent a crew of people that we kind of maybe are forgetting about is, the boomers, they kind of like cut their teeth on tough stuff, and I would say that it's just like millennials and the gap generation and stuff like that have kind of really cycled through this, I don't know, shitty generation. A lot faster, and there's a couple of different reasons for that, but I definitely think that, operationally we're defective.
So some of the other things that this Keane guy points out is that the largest political interference during their service was the removal of demonstrated merit in the promotion process in favor of a task analysis exercise to advance underrepresented groups in promotion. The resulting catastrophe in a human resource advanced less qualified and unqualified personnel and risk-averse careerists.
So are they saying, because that was a lot of like verbal gymnastics right there. So are they saying that because she was an equity hire, it was shit?
Not necessarily. No, I think he's saying that this is part of, from his experience, the systemic problems with the RCMP and the interference of the RCMP from Ottawa is that as an organization, they would be promoting people that are
diversity hires,
underrepresented. So yes,
diversity hires,
a minority group of some kind.
Yeah,
The
like
reason I can't get a
we've
good
talked
job.
about DEI hires. We've
But
talked about
for
DEI.
promoting those people,
Yeah.
not going, hey, you've got like 2 or 3 guys that are qualified or girls
Yeah,
that are
absolutely.
qualified, and we're going to favor one over the other, even though they're all qualified.
Yeah.
The qualification they were doing was, are you some sort of underrepresented minority, in which
Yeah.
case you get promoted, and then some of these people are risk adverse, which, like, a certain amount of risk adverseness is a good thing, but when your job is to protect and serve, at some point you're going to need to run towards the sound of gunfire, not away from it.
Well, and so in my experience, like, I think for the most part, I've been pretty open about this, but like fairly recently, probably in the last couple of years, I worked just under a year with the federal government, and on the administrative side of things, like I helped with, it was a regulatory agency, but I was an executive assistant of sorts. So I was tasked with seeing through the onboarding of an entire team at a variety of different times.
Still, my condolences.
Well, like it wasn't an awful job by any means, but you do see how that, like DEI hiring, diversity, equity, inclusion. And again, this is not equity of actual equality. This is, like equality of outcome, not equality of opportunity. So it's actually like, it's a fallacy entirely, right?
Yeah.
And I've talked about this in the HR circles, and I'm sure, Gavin, you've probably heard of this plenty as well, is, DEI is, that language is being permeating the workforce. So, and usually what drives the permeation of the workforce, the non-federal government workforce, is government's already, they've already done it.
Yeah.
If we're doing it on ground level here, the government is driving that car.
Yeah, they're step one, and then everyone else follows suit. Yeah,
absolutely. So the fact that we're seeing it in public sector and private sector, well, private sector means that the public sector has already, capitalized on this. And some of the folks, like, again, lovely humans, but they are given positions with serious control when they literally just like hit a tick box. And, like, nobody's necessarily overtly saying, oh, hey, you are a minority. I'm going to hire you based on how you identify with your, sexual orientation or preference or whatever. They're not always outright saying that, but the promotion that is, the vernacular, the narrative that's being pushed, like, people are very influenced. Like,
and so I mean, if you read Thomas Sowell's books, he talks a lot about stuff like that. And one of the things that he actually points out is that in a lot of cases, this is actually more detrimental to minority groups than beneficial. So it's like, great, sure, they got a job they maybe wouldn't have got before, but the organization, if the organization is racist, hires the bare minimum of these people, whichever minority group they're told they have to, and whatever thing, and they generally put them in the lowest paying category and then never advance them until they have to, because
do you blame them? Like,
no,
and this
if you're being told you have to hire them, you put them in the least paying job where they do,
and it creates resentment.
Yeah,
like, this is one thing that I'm like, as somebody who works on the people side of businesses, like, that's your biggest problem. Like, stop trying to create division in your team, because that's exactly what this is doing, right? And then you get like, again, this washing of an organization with the same paintbrush. So, a couple of the RCMP has its own history, but a couple of really crazy things that have happened in the recent history of the RCMP kind of like glazes over or covers over the rich history of the RCMP being, you know, like a symbol of Canadian heritage, right?
Yeah.
And it really does
Yeah.
take away from that. Like my uncle, he worked with the RCMP and he doesn't have a lot of good things to say about it. And he said it's because a lot of the time they could just throw money at anything. So they didn't really use their heads, right?
Yeah.
Because they were like, hey, we can just buy off shit.
So
Yeah.
so the MCC has identified some issues. How do
Oh,
you think
just a few?
how do you think they responded to this particular issue?
I
Uh,
can't see the article and where my mind is going.
I'm just
I'm
like,
not saying
if you
online.
had to guess how the MCC responded to diversity and what their recommendation for diversity in the RCMP would be, what do you think it would
they
be?
it definitely, like
This one's
they're talking more DEI hires, aren't they?
Yes,
Yeah, I was
absolutely.
gonna
So
say, I was like,
this officer has said that this is the
Because-
biggest problem with them, and
yeah,
the MCC goes and says that they
there's
need
too many
more.
white people.
Well,
that
they don't
were
go and
on
say
shift.
that,
But there were
they're-
too many people on shift that were white, which caused this to drag
No,
on too much.
they have
that if
not
they had more,
said that. So what they are saying is that they are advising for more active recruitment from underrepresented groups
yeah,
and financially supporting them during training.
yeah. But so
Right,
this
so-
is it. But this is the problem: is that it's not about those, you know,
Yeah.
extra things. It's about what are you training these people?
Exactly.
It's
Okay,
not about
so-
like, okay, sure, like financially support people through training. That's already
But-
a thing that's in place.
but
Like you
there's-
make
that's been
decent
50
money.
that's
you
been
know, being
15
just-
years since that has happened, because I have someone in my family that literally graduated New Year's Eve.
I
Mhm.
think this
And
means
New
more
Ye-
than just getting paid, though.
So, but I mean, so that all depends, right? So, like, so a person in my family that
Yes.
is part of this Queens Cowboys or whatever,
Mhm.
you know, decided he wanted to go RCMP
Mhm.
and, you know, all that stuff. And he did the application and all that stuff. But he had to think very much ahead because it's a 6-month training program in Alberta.
Mhm.
Yeah, Alberta. I don't know. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Alberta depot. So during those 6 months, he had room, he had board, he had food,
Mhm.
but it did not matter what bills he had to pay. If he had credit cards, he had this, that.
Yeah.
There was no weekly allotment for anything.
Sure. Okay, but
So, no, so he graduated New Year's Eve,
okay.
December 31st. January 2nd, they said from now on, you still get all the benefits you got, but you do get a weekly allowance of, I want to say it was $600. I could be wrong
That's
on
a
that.
lot.
But
Yeah.
right, so considering your room, board, and three meals a day is taken care of, right?
Yeah.
So they were like, hey, we just graduated. Can we get that? Because he had to plan ahead of time to be like, I'm gone for 6 months. So if I have any credit card bill I need to pay, I can't stop paying it for 6 months. If I have a car payment, if I have a
Yeah.
mortgage, any of those things, he had to strategically plan ahead to be like,
Yeah.
I'm doing this thing. I need to put a boatload of money aside, right? It is still like a 1.5 to 2 year hiring process at that point. So I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, he still needed to do the things to be able to accommodate all those things so that when he graduated and say, hey, here's your letter of employment, but you've defaulted for the last 7 months on anything, right? So that support thing's been in plan for 15 years.
Well, no, okay. So
But I think
think
that's
that
irrelevant
if you're going for
in this
training,
conversation.
like
So-
training should always be paid, especially
Yeah,
if it's
yeah.
like on the job training. So the people that are
For sure.
going through training, if you have been accepted to go to training, like the things that you have to do to lead up to get accepted to training are on you. Anything
Yeah.
that happens from the moment that you start officially training, whether they accept you or not, should be paid.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter who you are. This is making it sound like the only people that are going to be getting financial support are the people that are underrepresented.
Yes.
So
And that is the key, Gavin. Like,
yes.
that's what you're saying. Because Pierre, if that's exactly what's going on, then that's a problem. That is a big issue. Like, that is where that systemic issue kind of comes in, right? Is that, these people are not like their lives are being financially, a little stressed to say the least for 6 months. Get that. Where the issue arises, honestly, is that they are saying that the issue is in the people that they're hiring, when it's not actually the recruits. The issue has been that the content in which they're training them on, and the fact that the focus is a lot more on, feelings and skin color and all of these things, rather than like operational structure and success.
The criteria of
so this is the issue. So if it is the way that you say it is, and that you have to basically, like, you get room and board and that's it, and any other expenses are on your responsibility, so that means there is a financial barrier to entry. If they eliminate that for certain people, then that is unfair, because you're definitely then going to have a bunch of people that otherwise wouldn't be able to go, but have a group of people that want to be there, but can't because they can't financially afford it.
So like I said, just to clarify, 15 years ago, that was the scenario. The second that person graduated, that was a different. So he got flown out there, all the things. So
but that just it sounds like this though, is that they're going to support all of the minority people, but not the majority or whoever they deem as the majority.
White people, white men.
Yes.
But that's not the criteria after, so the person in my family was like literally the last class.
Where that was
you
happening.
Didn't get that. Yeah, where that was happening. Like,
okay, so now what do you know what it is now? Like, in training, do they get I'm assuming they get paid in training now.
I imagine they do, because it's probably
they do now. So he, like I said, he graduated like the 31st, and
like
technically January 1st was his first day of official pay, because it's on contract or whatever, and that was like 15
right.
But
so
this makes
pretty much what we're saying is that, like,
they're
giving economic advantage to individuals of minority groups, pretty much, whatever that looks like.
Which, at least if they had said something like, to people that meet the qualifications but are financially unable to do this, that's a different thing, because at least then it's like you still get a variety of candidates and a mix of candidates. It's just that, like, all right, if you come from a well-off family and you have the money to do this, we're not going to pay your thing. And the people that are financially underprivileged,
so
that at least I can understand, because it's still unfair, but at least it's unfair in a way that isn't like,
no, see, I think that removes like, it still
a financial
goes back
barrier
to this,
of someone that would want to do it.
But no. So if you're going to remove the financial barrier, you have to remove it for everybody.
I agree with you, but at least if it wasn't,
you start splitting hairs. But this is the problem. Like, what's the difference between somebody saying, "Oh, because of your racial status or your identity status or whatever,"
but at least it would be a step in the right.
Status,
at least it would be a step in the right direction if it wasn't based on gender.
Absolutely. But like, it shouldn't be based on anything. This is the point. And this is where I get like super pissed off, because everybody continually talks about this. Like, folks, our society is like so trash because we cannot understand the real definition of equality. No, okay, you're so focused. We're so focused on becoming non-discriminatory that we have swung to an even more discriminatory space. Like, it's unbelievable. And I would say that it has just like escalated so aggressively in the last 10 years that it blows my mind. People can't see it. Blows my mind. People
here's
can't see it.
Here's some more reports that the commission commissioned. The health and safety of survival sex workers in Halifax and Truro. the
What?
history of gun control in Canada,
Yeah.
mass shootings and masculinity,
Oh no.
conceptions of masculinity and violence towards a healthier evolution of men and boys.
Did
You
you
keep
know
talking
that-
like this, I'm going to lose my underwear for the night.
Do you
So-
know, like, that in the States, actually, a lot of the most recent mass shootings have been done by gender dysphoric individuals.
Okay.
So you want to talk
So-
about masculinity?
Yeah. So
Have a conversation about
we're
that.
We're not
Yeah.
touching that right now.
Keen here said that the MCC's findings were skewed by an ideological bent. They seem to have wandered into political and nonsensical recommendations by academics in criminology and sociology concerned more with diversity, inclusion, and equity rather than addressing the obvious lack of manpower, relevant in-person critical incident training exercises, and lack of material support on the ground of actual police in the RCMP contract provinces. Academics are not well suited to devise police HR policies when they have never policed their communities. Heaving books at a terrorist like Wortman would have little effect.
Okay, so does anything in this thing saying like, hey, it'd be a good idea to do anything? It'd be like give more money to the border security where this alleged, well, this person that caused whatever,
Yeah.
smuggled the, guns and prohibited weapons that are already not legal to own
Well-
unless you have a certain criteria of firearms license, which is unavailable to anybody that ever fucking
So here's
participates in
the
any of this
troubling
thing.
part of all of this here. So the report made 130 recommendations and more than 3,000 pages of documentation.
Thank
Prime
God
Minister
we spent that much fucking money on this thing.
Yeah, Prime Minister
Hmm.
Justin Trudeau says his government will take on many of the recommendations.
This is like,
So,
Okay,
but
so
part of
every-
this is where the problem is getting back to some of this stuff from. Guess what some of those recommendations are,
I'm interested.
aside from
Um,
the diversity hires. So
What?
so restricting magazine capacity.
so all of the amendments in C21 that were thrown out
Are in that
are
recommendation.
conveniently,
Ugh,
Yeah.
almost word for word,
copy and paste it into that.
So does
are
not matter.
recommendations. So somehow banning semi-auto center fire rifles that are capable of holding a magazine that has more than 5 rounds in it will prevent somebody that was a known violent offender with illegal guns who's also paid off by the RCMP from illegally smuggling guns,
And
no license, no nothing, getting them from the US into Canada. Somehow that's going to stop that from happening.
as well as shooting a Queen's Cowboy officer that was trying to do their job and taking their service
Yeah.
pistol and service rifle, which those laws don't apply. So even if I have or anybody has an AR-15 with a 5-round mag that is not capable of possessing 30 due to the current legislation we have about putting a rivet in, would not have changed anything because that person only needs one shot in the right spot to
Well, not even
Now
that.
take-
So
right.
if you're capable of smuggling a rifle
Yeah.
up from the United States, are you not capable of also smuggling up the magazines to go with said rifle? Because
But if
last
you
I
were
saw
le-
is that like when the criminals in Toronto that are criminaling and get caught and have illegal firearms,
they also have prohibit
they don't
magazines.
have pinned magazines, right?
And but it's okay because they get to go home because they're not part of the diversity, or
Yeah.
they are part of the right diversity that they get to
So,
go home compared to
my-
anybody that would have a firearms license.
My guess is that basically, C21 is going to go through. They dropped the amendments in order to make it go through quickly, because otherwise they would have had consultations, which would cost more money and spend more time. when all they need to do is the sort of the final vote on it, and it's through, and then handguns are banned. You know, they've already immediately after that said that they're not done. They're going to have those consultations and then do the thing that they're going to do. This is just more proof for them because, oh, these are the recommendations, but we already know that the fact that they said there was no political interference, and like that list of like ridiculous reports that they had commissioned that had absolutely nothing to do with any of this. Like, what does the safety of sex workers have to do with some crazy person that went out and shot some people? Like,
oh, that's simple.
That's-
You're just too white to understand the conception.
you know, it's just absolutely insane. So this is just more, I mean, fake evidence to support the liberal cause. So they're going to go, oh, see, well, these amendments now should have been a thing. There'll be their own bill. My
And
guess is it'll
everybody's
be
gonna
the
trust
big election platform that's probably going to be coming up because
Huh.
they're still in a minority thing. And it looks like, you know, their favor with the NDP is waning.
and you know, so most peoples won't agree with maybe Justin Trudeau saying that guns are bad
Yeah.
and you should do this, but if the RCMP, you know,
Well, it's not
and
even the
people-
RCMP. It's
no,
it's
but the
it's a
people
group of
appointed
people
for
that-
us.
that, you know, they basically handpicked to do this thing.
Mhm.
And so of course they're going to,
But
you know,
right, so
recommend
they're part
the
of
things
that
that they want. Yeah.
that different thing where they were like, but they're
Yes.
specifically talking in reference to our biggest mass
Yeah.
casualty, you know, serial
yeah.
killer, whatever you want to call it, you know. But so maybe we won't listen to Justin Trudeau saying that, you know, doing a handgun ban is the best
But-
thing in the world. But these, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6, 20 people that are on this panel, because I don't even know and I don't care to know, have recommended that, you know, but they also dug deep into, you know,
Yeah.
everything about the scenario that they're talking about, where, you know, they may follow along, you know, and tug that boat line and the whole bullshit, that it would be a thing. And I'll also go on a little small tangent here where, trust me, I'm the last person that would recommend anything from the CBC. But there is a fantastic podcast about the mass shooting and whatever, 13 hours. So not the really cool fucking movie about Benghazi. But the other one where all this happened, it is actually a really good podcast. I listened to all the episodes and take it maybe on the, you know, side tangent with a little bit of salt because it is CBC, but it is a good one that goes through the whole process, and they interview a bunch of people that may have had some info and people about how they, you know, the person potentially smuggled guns, and his neighbor that, you know, called the RCMP a few times and said, hey, this guy's got fucking guns that are not legal to own in Ottawa or in Canada. And, you know, because we were military, he asked us to get him ammunition and this and that and whatever. I will say take it with a grain of salt, but out of anything the CBC has done, that is the one thing I will recommend to actually listen to just maybe get some of the story other than mainstream media, even though it is kind of CBC endorsed and everything. It is a decent podcast to listen to, all episodes for sure.
There you go. Well, I think that's everything we've got for this evening.
Yeah.
Oh yes, this report we spent all that time and money on is basically more liberal propaganda. Shocking, I know. Pierre, where can everyone find you and potentially buy an awesome t-shirt for their family, friends, significant others' birthday, Christmas, Mother's Day is coming up.
Yes,
Father's Day after that.
I've got some spicy ones for mommies. Off the wall customizing, all the socialist medias, or at offthewallcustomizing@gmail.com. You'll either talk to me or Mel, and we can make pretty much anything happen. Send a
Don't
picture
lie,
to
you'll be
you.
talking to Mel.
I took care of one email out of everything. which
There
was
you
the one
go.
we were
Okay,
talking about at the
there's a
beginning.
one in
Yeah.
however many
Yeah.
emails they've got
Yeah.
a chance. It might be Pierre. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in most cases it'll be Mel, but still, I like to throw it out there that maybe I do some stuff sometimes. But yeah, off the wall customizing at Gmail or all the socialist medias because Mel set that up.
Well, there we go. All right, Liz, where can everyone find you?
You can find me either at the Basement Gym on social media, or you can find me here at the podcast. I am less likely to check most of my social media. So, if you really, really want to get in touch with me, use the feedback link on the email and I'll get a forwarded email.
There you go. Feedback at CanadianPatriotPodcast.com.
There you go.
For those that have forgotten it. If you've listened to the show this long, you deserve a discount. So head on over to RagnarokTactical.ca. Use the code Patriot at checkout for a discount. Also, don't forget our Amazon affiliate link. Save you doesn't save you a couple of dollars, but doesn't cost you anything. But we get a couple of dollars out of Jeff Bezos's Penis Rocket Fund. So we would much appreciate that. You can find me on Instagram, UrbexGTA. Also, if you happen to be on the long range shooting course next weekend, you'll see me there. Apologies to Rod. He wasn't able to make it this evening. He thought the long range shooting class was today, so he's out on the range looking for us. I guess signals got crossed. He got the dates wrong, but yeah, unfortunately, he's not here now. He's standing there waiting. But I would like to remind everybody that you are a small fringe minority with unacceptable views.